What's up, everybody? Nick Dwyer back with you for another episode of the 10th inning. In this video, I'm continuing my series up until the end of the year with my all-decade teams. Last video, I did Major League Baseball, got that team in there. This video, it's all about basketball, all about the NBA. So, since the NBA is obviously the smallest roster out of any of these sports, when I was making this team, I had certain criteria. One, you had to have a point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center on each of the lists. Players who can play multiple positions. Lebron James, he can play small forward, power forward. Really, he can play any position. But he can play either one of those positions on this team. So I have 3 teams, 5 starters, 5 reserves, and 5 bench players. So, let's get into it right now. Before I get into this video, don't forget to click, share, and subscribe to the 10th inning. It means a lot. And after this video, if you have any comments on any of the players that I suggested, let me know down in the comment section. I would love to hear what your guys' team is. Without further ado, let's get started. Into the starters on the first team. Point guard, shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, Steph Curry. What else is there to say? Steph Curry, one part of the Splash Brothers, 6 All-Star appearances, 6 All-NBA teams, 23.5 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 6.6 assists. There's nothing that Steph Curry can't do. And the main reason, other than his statistics, that he is on this team, he revolutionized the game. He helped revolutionize the three-point game. He's shooting 5, 6, 10 feet past the three-point line. Curry deserves to make this team no matter what. 2-time MVP, 3rd-time all-time three-point shooter, 3-time NBA champion. Steph Curry has a chance to be one of the greatest. He was one of the players that easily defined this decade. He's on this team, no question. Now going to shooting guard. Shooting guard was by far the weakest position out of any position in the decade. But even if it was a stronger position in the decade, James Harden, you can't go wrong with him no matter what the choice is. 7 All-Stars, 6 All-NBAs, 24.3 points, 5.2 rebounds, 6.2 assists per game in the decade. Harden made his case easily. If Curry revolutionized the game with a three-point, well, Harden went back to, I'm going to drive, get my free throws, but I can also beat you at that three-point game. That's exactly what Harden did. Started the decade off as a 6th man with the Oklahoma City Thunder, but now has made his way into being one of the best players in the league with the Houston Rockets. MVP winner, probably should be a 2-time MVP winner. 3rd leading scorer over the decade. Harden, another player, when history is over, history will do him a lot of favors. Easy Hall of Famer, easy choice for this team. At small forward, as I said earlier in the intro, LeBron James is a small forward, but he can play power forward. So small forward, Kevin Durant. These two were going to make it no matter what. You just had to think, what order are they going to make it? Kevin Durant's my small forward because that's more of what he is. A great scorer, doesn't play excellent defense, but can play defense. 10 All-Stars, 9 All-NBAs, 28 points per game, 7.4 boards, 4.4 assists. Durant is a 7-foot monster who can shoot like one of the best guards in the league, has the length of a center. Durant is a ridiculous player, ridiculous scorer. 4 scoring titles during the decade, a 62.6 true shooting percentage, and although Durant is known as an offensive monster, he can still do it on the defensive end. LeBron James stated that Durant was one of the best players that he has ever played against, and coming from LeBron, one of the greatest of all time, that's some high accomplishment, high praise from LeBron right there. And his presence was found everywhere he went. In Oklahoma City, didn't quite have the playoff success as he would find in Golden State, but still did a pretty good job. 1 MVP over the decade, All-Star every single season, 2 championships when he moved to Golden State. Now, Durant's place in history will always be a little shaky because of his move to Golden State, but you can't blame the guy. He won his rings. He got his rings. Durant deserves to be on this list. At power forward, LeBron James. Now, if we're really being serious right now, LeBron James can play any position on the court and probably be the best at that position. Now, the reason I put LeBron over Kevin Durant at power forward why Durant's not a power forward is because LeBron, when he decides to play defense, has the physicality to stand up to those big men. He can do what is needed against the big men in the paint. But also, we know that LeBron was just one of the greatest players of the decade, probably the best player of the decade. 10 All-Stars, 10 All-NBA appearances, 26.9 points, 7.7 boards, 7.6 assists. He was the most well-rounded player of the decade. That's not up for debate. LeBron was top 10 in the decade in points scored, rebounds, assists, and minutes logged. LeBron is a one-of-a-kind player, something that we've never really seen in the game before. A playmaker like Magic, defender like Pippen, one of the most feared drivers in the history of the league. The weakest part of his game is his free throw ability, which, if that's the weakest part of your game and you're still at a 75% clip, that's not bad. That's really not bad. LeBron is a different type of player, and some may still say he's still in his prime. In his 17th season, he's as good as he ever was. He could have honestly been an MVP every single season LeBron has been in this league, and every season in the 2010s he could have been, because he really is the most valuable player to his team. However, that didn't happen, but he's still an MVP winner, championship winner, 3-time championship winner, 2-time MVP winner during the decade. LeBron James, easy choice for power forward. Now, center, I know I said shooting guard was the weakest position. Center made an argument for weakest position, but shooting guard, as we will see in the next two teams, shooting guard was weaker than center. So my center right now, Anthony Davis for the first team. 6 All-Star appearances, 3 All-NBA, 24 points per game, 10.5 rebounds, 2.2 assists. Amazing on the defensive end as a blocker. Davis, one of the most highly touted players out of college in recent memory. He was supposed to be one of the best players immediately as he took the NBA court, and for the most part, that's been true. He has done a very good job in the league so far. He may have been underutilized a little bit in his early days, but he was still showing that he was the best player on those Pelicans teams, and now he's teamed up with LeBron for the Lakers. Now it's just we wait and see what they can do the rest of his career, rest of his time in LA. Davis is a monster, there's no doubt about that. Davis will finally start to get the accolades that he deserves, the team accolades, not the individual accolades. Anthony Davis, easy choice for center. So those are our starters. Now we get into the bench players, and starting off in the bench, point guard, Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, 8 All-Star appearances, 8 All-NBA appearances, 24.2 points, 7.4 rebounds, 8.8 assists. Now, I know I said LeBron James was the most well-rounded player during the decade. Russell Westbrook would like to make an argument with you there, because when we saw Oscar Robertson average a triple-double in the 1961-1962 season, no one thought we would ever see that again. Well, Russell Westbrook thought differently. He's now done it 3 seasons in a row. Just insane stuff he's doing. And Russell Westbrook, some may call him a stat pad or stat stuffer. Whatever the case may be, he's done it. No one else has done it. Again, he might not be better than LeBron at that certain aspect, but there's no doubting the athleticism that Russell Westbrook has. If not for Curry revolutionizing the game, Westbrook would be an easy choice for the first team, but Westbrook's shooting percentage and the fact that Curry was in this decade makes it really tough to put him above Stephen Curry. So Russell Westbrook, you're getting a bench spot. Still a great spot to be in, though, on this stacked team. One MVP during the course of the decade. Again, kind of like Harden, could have been 2, but he deserves easily to be on this team. Next case for shooting guard. Now, this might come as a little bit controversial, but you can also see why I said it's a weak shooting guard decade. Klay Thompson as the bench shooting guard. 5 All-Star appearances, 2 All-NBA, 19.5 points per game, 3.5 boards, and 2.3 assists. Now, even though shooting guard is the weakest position out of anything during this decade, that's not saying that Klay Thompson's a bad player. No, quite the opposite. He's a very good role player. He's just never had to be the main guy. He's always had Steph and Curry by his side, so he's never had to be that number one player. Could he be that number one player? I'm sure he could, but he's more of a catch and shoot guy. Curry can create for himself. Curry creates for others. That's what makes those two as a pair so deadly. But Thompson's not just an offensive player. He's a good defender, sharp shooting guard, very important part to the Warriors' championship runs. Possibly the best catch and shoot player in the history of the league. Thompson would be a welcomed addition to any team in the league, and he's a welcomed addition on this all-decade team. So he's the shooting guard coming off the bench with players like Russ, and as my small forward around him, Klay Thompson, great addition. Moving my small forward, this might be, okay, well, why isn't he on the first team? He 100% belongs on the first team. Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard, 3 All-Stars, 3 All-NBAs, 18.1, 6.4 boards, 2.5 assists. Now, stats don't do Leonard justice. That's all I'll say. Stats do not do him justice. Offensively, never been the type of player to lead you in every single category like a LeBron, like a KD. But on the defensive end, you can't deny what he gives you. He gives you such a presence on the court, it's ridiculous. Kawhi Leonard, during the decade, kind of dismantled not one, but 2 dynasties in the making. He beat the Heat with the Spurs. Now, the Spurs had a very good team that year, but he beat the Heat when he covered LeBron. He didn't lock down LeBron by any means, but he made LeBron's job a lot tougher, made him expend so much energy he just couldn't do anymore. And then last season, he brought the Toronto Raptors their first championship in their franchise history, kind of dismantled the Warriors team because then Kevin Durant left to go to the Nets. So Kawhi Leonard has to be on this team. Again, stats don't do him justice, but his court presence means everything. However, court presence wasn't enough for me to put him above Durant or above LeBron. So Kawhi, you're on the second team right now. Still great because small forward, for what center and shooting guards are for a weak position during the decade, small forwards and point guards probably the best position for depth. They are the strongest positions during the decade, and that's proven with Kawhi as a second team player. Now, at power forward, another guy who's really a small forward but plays power forward too. So Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis is the type of player who has a body build like KD, had a body build like KD when he first entered the league, but kind of a game like LeBron. He wasn't a shooter, wanted to rush the paint, do all that. Now he's built up a body. Giannis is going to run the league during the next decade. That's not up for debate right now. What's up for debate is whether he belongs on this team. 3 All-Stars, 3 All-NBAs, 19.5 points, 8.6 boards, 4.2 assists. Now, Giannis entered the league in 2013. Really didn't come alive, though, until the later part of the decade. But he's been one of the best players the past couple seasons. I find it so hard to keep him off this team. So Giannis is earning a second team spot. 1 MVP to go along with that. Giannis is on the second team. Now, going to center, Demarcus Cousins. Demarcus Cousins, probably one of the most overlooked players of the past decade. Been consistently good. 4 All-Star appearances, 2 All-NBA, 21.2 points, 10.9 boards, 3.2 assists. Just has had the bad luck of playing on some bad teams. But DeMarcus Cousins has been one of the most consistent players in the NBA, barring his injuries the past couple of seasons. Cousins works his way into being one of the best big men of the decade. But again, because you never really saw him on a great team, he got overlooked by the fans and the rest of the league. Cousins doesn't really have all the accolades to his name that some of the other players on this list do. But don't get me wrong, Cousins deserves to be on this team. He's a second team player on the all-decade team. Now, we have the starters done and we have the bench done. Let's get into those reserves. At point guard on the reserve team, Chris Paul. 7 All-Stars, 6 All-NBAs, 18 points per game, 4.4 assists, rebounds, 9.4 assists. Now, the thing about Chris Paul is he came into the league in 2005, so kind of tough for him because, again, LeBron's a different kind of athlete. LeBron did it, no problem. But not everyone's that type of athlete. Chris Paul's body is starting to deteriorate, so he's not nearly as good as he was in his prime. But Chris Paul is probably the best true point guard on this list. He's a pass-first type of guy, great player, but I can't give him the nod over Curry or Westbrook. Paul, one of the best point guards we ever seen, but would you give him the nod over Curry or Westbrook? So Chris Paul deserves a spot on this team, but you can't be a starter. You can't be off the bench. You got to be a reserve man. Sorry. At shooting guard, it's not Kobe Bryant. Just letting you guys know that right now. I'm going with Dwayne Wade. Kobe Bryant did not play long enough at a sustained level to make a spot on this roster. Now, you're probably thinking of other guys and thinking, well, why does Dwayne Wade make it then? Because he's the same as Kobe. Going back and looking at it, though, yeah, he wasn't the same Dwayne Wade in the late 2000s and the early 2010s, but he's been pretty consistent with what he has been during his last couple seasons. At his last couple seasons, he was a consistent player. 8 All-Stars. One of them was an accolade, even though he didn't do anything his last season. 4 All-NBAs, 20.1 points, 4.6 boards, 4.7 assists. Now, Wade, at the start of the decade, one of the best players in the league. Then once LeBron came over to the Heat, LeBron took the reins as the best player, but Dwayne Wade was still the leader of that team. Wade, still a dangerous threat with LeBron. Won 2 more championships to go along with his one he won in 2006. LeBron may have been the best player Wade has ever played with, but Wade was a key role in those championship teams. Then his age, his health started to catch up to him. Knee injuries really started to take everything. Wade still belongs on this team because, again, shooting guard, not really as deep as you think. If you guys want to come up with a better shooting guard, let me know down in the comment section. I shan't think of it. So, point guard, shooting guard, done on the reserve. Small forward, Paul George. Paul George, it was so tough keeping him off the second team, but small forward, the best depth position in the decade. Paul George, 6 All-Stars, 5 All-NBAs, 20 points, 6.4 rebounds, 3.3 assists. George was growing at the same pace that the Indiana Pacers were growing. When he was getting better, the Pacers were getting better. And it was just an ongoing thing. But Paul George never really the best he could be on offense. His main thing was defense, somewhat like Kawhi Leonard. In his earlier days, better offensive player than Kawhi. But he was a defensive player first. After his injury, he started to play more defense on the Thunder, on the Clippers now. Paul George should be on this list. Barring injury, he could have been on the second team over Giannis. But Giannis, the past couple seasons, has been so deadly, so good, that I just couldn't do it. I could not put him over Giannis for the second team. So George, even though it pains me to do this, got a third team spot on the all-decade team. Final 2 players, Blake Griffin at the power forward position. Blake Griffin, kind of like Demarcus Cousins, gets overlooked, but Griffin's for a different reason. 6 All-Star appearances, 5 All-NBAs, 21.7 points, 8.9 boards, 4.4 assists. Now, Blake Griffin kind of gets overlooked because, kind of like Anthony Davis, he was so hyped up out of college. He should have been the best player. And we really never saw that out of him. We never really saw the true dominant Blake Griffin that we all thought we were going to. Don't get me wrong, he's always been a very good player. He obviously deserved a spot on this team. But he's never been that player that people thought he was going to be. As he aged and went through more injuries, Griffin kind of changed the way he played his game. He wasn't a rim rocker anymore. He started to become more of a jump shooter while still getting rebounds. That's what gave him a spot on this team. Changing his game and being a better player than he was when he was younger, Blake Griffin gets a spot on this team. Finally, we get to the last center on the all-decade team. And even though some of you guys might not like this choice, Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard during the decade. Now, when we think of Dwight Howard, we think of the latest Dwight Howard, the past couple seasons, where how does he possibly make a spot? But I think people forget just how dominant this man was during the early part of the decade. 5 All-Stars, 5 All-NBA, 16.9 points, 12.4 boards, 1.5 assists, 2 Defensive Player of the Years. You can't go against Dwight Howard. If he was the same level that he was at the beginning of the decade, no question he's on the first team. But he diminished like any other player as they aged, except for LeBron. Howard, still a good player, but he's not nearly as close as he was to being a great player as he was when the 2010s started. Still good for a spot on this team, though. So, there you have it. That's my all-decade team for the NBA. Again, down in the comment section, let me know if you agree with my pitch for the team. What would you do differently, though? I know not everyone has the same thought process while making these teams. What would you do differently? Let me know down in the comment section. We got 2 more videos for the all-decade teams. We have the NFL and we have the NHL coming to you before the New Year's kicks off. So, if you guys are interested, just keep your notification bell on. They will be getting to you soon for the 10th inning. Nico Dwyer, see ya.